Well, hey there, everyone. We are live inside the newsroom here at Fox 5 DC. I'm Nevola here in Washington on this Wednesday, August 29th. Welcome to our stream, our digital stream inside the newsroom, providing you guys with the latest breaking news, live video from really around the nation, around the world. And today, a lot of stuff kind of up on our menu to start with. This morning, as you see in your headline, this morning they are making preparations in the Arizona State Capitol there in Phoenix. There's a live look right inside of that rotunda area where John McCain, the late John McCain, will lie in state there in Arizona. This following a private ceremony this morning and then later open for public viewing for the public to go until really there are no more lines, according to McCain's campaign manager, Rick Davis. So that is the big day in Arizona there for Senator McCain. His body will be flown here to Washington Thursday evening. He'll land in Joint Base Andrews and be greeted there. And then Friday, he will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. Following that, his official funeral ceremony on Saturday. So lots kind of on the docket there for celebrating McCain's life. So we'll have a lot for you on that topic, of course, and we're going to try to peep in to this rotunda as things kind of get underway. But that's not until a little bit later, the early afternoon hours there in Arizona. Also right now, take a live look at this, totally switching gears. This is a live aerial view of some stranded marine life in Florida. This is off the Florida Gulf Coast. They've been dealing with some really horrible red tide that's been quite traumatic to some of the manatees and whale sharks and other marine life there in Florida. And these are some pretty staggering aerials. Lots of bystanders there just kind of watching on the beach. You can't quite see them right here, but we do have some aerials there for you of what they're looking to rescue, and no exact further details on exactly what they have pinned down there, but they are definitely working feverishly to save whatever marine life this is on that coast. Also coming up in a little more somber news, guys, back home here, right outside of Annapolis, Sandy Point Public Beach. Last night, there was a 12-year-old girl who drowned. She was found 40 feet off of the coast of the beach there, and we're going to have officials update us, give the final word on what exactly happened yesterday. To start you off, let's open up with some of the top stories of today, including a preface to Senator John McCain's plans as people memorialize him today and into the weekend.
McCain, family, colleagues, and everyday Americans will get a chance to honor the longtime politician and war hero beginning here in Phoenix. The motorcade carrying the body of John McCain will arrive at Arizona State Capitol later this morning. He will lie in state on the day which would have been his 82nd birthday. A private ceremony will be held in the rotunda. The McCain family will be in attendance. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey will deliver remarks, Congressman Jim Colby will present a wreath, and Senator Jeff Flake will lead the benediction.
Only John McCain could rig a big birthday celebration for himself like this.
Then the Capitol will be open for public viewing.
I have reassurances that as long as there are people in line to file through to see John, the Capitol will remain open.
Events honoring the Maverick will continue throughout the week, including a memorial service in Phoenix, his body lying in state at the U.S. Capitol, funeral services in Washington with actor Warren Beatty, former Vice President Joe Biden, and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, plus several other notable figures serving as pallbearers. And on Sunday, he'll be laid to rest at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Meanwhile, the debate over renaming the Russell Senate building after the six-time senator wages on. Republicans stalling the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's proposal for the name change.
Instead of worrying about what to name for him, which we should name something or a bunch of things, let's be more like him.
And another person who will be remembering the late senator, McCain's 106-year-old mother, Roberta. Earlier this week, she reportedly said she's proud of her son, but sad to bury her child. In Phoenix, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Aretha Franklin fans are lining up to pay their final respects to an American legend. Thousands of people are expected to pour into Detroit's African American History Museum over the next 2 days for the public visitation. The museum hosted a similar viewing for civil rights icon Rosa Parks in 2005. Lines started forming as early as 5 a.m. Tuesday, hours before the doors were slated to open. The visitation and viewing is part of a week-long celebration of Franklin, who died nearly 2 weeks ago at the age of 76. On Thursday, a star-studded musical tribute is planned with more than 20 artists, musicians, and activists slated to perform. Fans continue to praise the singer's legacy, many of whom traveled across the country to pay their respects. People around the world are calling her voice the soundtrack to their lives. Aretha Franklin's funeral service is scheduled for Friday in Detroit. Speakers include President Bill Clinton, Smokey Robinson, and the Reverend Jesse Jackson. In New York, Laura Ingle, Fox News.
And again, apologies about some of the sound on that package, guys. Apparently some of it didn't go through, but the gist of it being Aretha Franklin's memorial services and viewings goes on for the second day. In addition to, as we mentioned earlier, John McCain. Here's a live look inside that Arizona State Capitol, where he will lie in state later on today. This is just a part of today's events here, following a private ceremony with family, friends, and some notable lawmakers from Arizona who will be there to speak. Meanwhile, we are looking at now up locally here outside of Annapolis. Here are the officials getting ready to speak about that little girl who drowned yesterday off the beach. Let's listen in.
A little after 6:30 in the evening, a call went into our communications center concerning a potential drowning here at Sandy Point State Park in Annapolis, Anne Arundel County. What had happened was a group of people from Baltimore had come to Sandy Point State Park, and they had set up down on the beach. They were here to picnic, they were here to swim, have a good time, recreate, as most people at Sandy Point do. At some point in time, 4 of the kids between the ages of 11 and 15 were left alone down by the beach. The 4 kids went into the water in an area of the beach that is fenced off and marked no swimming. It's a fishing area. At the time they went in the water, it was around 6:30 in the evening. All of the lifeguards at Sandy Point State Park go off duty at 6 p.m. And this is even an area of the beach where there wouldn't be lifeguards anyways, because, as I said, it's a no swimming area. It's a fishing area. The 4 kids went into the water. They decided they were just going to go into where they could stand. There was very strong current in the area. They got pulled out a little farther than they could stand. 3 of the kids made it back to shore. 1 did not, and that is Kanaya Kenley. She was a 12-year-old girl from Baltimore. Kanaya was in the water. She was struggling. The other kids that had been with her, they saw her. There were even 2 fishermen nearby who saw her struggling. 2 grown men. One of them grabbed a life ring buoy that was there in the fishing area. They both went in the water to try to help her, to try to rescue her. And neither one of them was able to get to her because the current was so strong. She went under the water. Natural Resources Police responded with Anne Arundel County Fire and EMS units, Maryland State Police helicopter, and Anne Arundel County helicopter. The agencies worked together, searched the area, and at about 11 o'clock last night, through the use of side scan sonar, Kanaya was found approximately 40 yards offshore. Recovery was made. She was deceased and transported to the medical examiner's office in Baltimore, where they will follow up with a medical investigation. It's a terrible tragedy. This is certainly is an accident. It's a good time to emphasize water safety, swimming safety anytime you're around the water. Swimming in the bay, swimming in the rivers and the oceans, it's not like swimming in a pool. There are currents, there are tides. The depth will drop off unexpectedly. So unless you really know where you are, unless you're a very good swimmer, you should never go alone. Even in this situation, they weren't alone, but they were swimming in an area that was marked for not swimming. They were overcome by the force of the water, and parents really need to keep an eye on their kids when they are swimming. Again, 11 to 15 years old, this is also an age where a lot of kids are left alone to swim, and they are good enough swimmers. But again, in the bay, in the rivers, in the ocean, you have to practice a higher level of water safety.
So lifeguards were off duty? This is a popular beach. It's going to be busy this weekend. It's so dang hot. What do you say to folks about lifeguards in the stand and playing in the sand?
Right, you're always safer, obviously, when lifeguards are on duty. And Sandy Point State Park, like I said, they're on duty until 6 p.m. So make sure that when you are at the beach, that you're looking out for everybody who you're there with. Make sure that somebody knows where you are all the time. And don't swim in an area where you're not supposed to swim. And particularly if lifeguards are off duty and you're not sure of your swimming capabilities or your swimming abilities, it's probably a good idea to stay out of the water then.
It's tough to speculate, but talk to me how critical and important it is for adults and youth to know how to swim. You never know, they fully intend to stay around their waist or so, and you never know what can happen.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this job for over 20 years, and multiple times in those 20 years where people have said, well, we were only going to go in up to our waist. We were going to make sure we stayed in an area where we could still stand. And again, this is not a pool. You don't know how deep the bottom is. You don't know what the currents are. You don't know what the tide is doing. So you really need to be aware of your surroundings, know where you are. It's a great beach. It's a wonderful beach. It's a treasure for Maryland here at Sandy Point State Park. But you really need to be aware of your surroundings and your abilities.
We got a big weekend coming up, end of the summer per se, and a lot of boats are going to be out there. You want to maybe reiterate some things boaters should be aware of. We had that incident the other day where a boat found itself on top of a sailboat.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some boat safety.
Yeah, we've had a very busy summer in terms of boating safety, boating accidents, and boating fatalities. We've had 16 boating fatalities in Maryland this year. Knock on wood. Hopefully that's it. That's all we have. But when people are going out on boats, you want to make sure that you got a life jacket. And life jackets don't work if you don't wear them. I know a lot of people, they still think about the old, uncomfortable, big, heavy, bulky life jackets. Then when it's a day like today and it's 95 degrees and you don't want to wear it, there are plenty of newer life jackets. They're smaller. You can wear them. They inflate. They're a lot more comfortable. And they work better in the hot temperatures because people actually wear them. And again, life jackets don't work if you don't wear them. Make sure that you have some level of boating safety. In Maryland, if you're born on or after July 1st, 1972, you have to have a boater safety card to operate a boat. So make sure that you have some kind of boater safety. Make sure that you're aware of your boat, that your boat's in good condition. Make sure that you know where you're going and that file a float plan. Even something as simple as letting people know where you're going when you plan on coming back, so that if you do have problems, that somebody will know where to start looking.
Kevin, are there going to be any extra precautions in the no swimming areas following this incident?
At this point in time, I'm not sure. I haven't heard from park staff if they are going to have any extra precautions. But like I said, that no swimming area, it is fenced off. There are signs there. But I'm not exactly sure of the park's plans.
Can you spell your name and the little girl's name?
My last name is spelled R-A-T-H-G-E-B. First name is Brian, B-R-I-A-N, and I'm a captain and the Southern Region Commander for the Natural Resources Police. And the victim, Kanaya Kenley, her name is K-A-N-I-Y-A. Last name is spelled K-E-N-L-Y.
And as somebody in this business, how do you feel about what happened and the need for preventing something like that from happening again when you're out swimming?
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And I mean, no matter how many times you see it, how many times it happens, it's heartbreaking every time. A tragic accident when somebody loses a life. And like I said, you've got to stress safety. When you're around the water, make sure, because water is such a powerful force, and particularly, again, when you're in an open setting here, as opposed to in a pool, or when you put a boat in the mix, and so you've got the water, you've got the heat, and you've got an engine behind you. So many things can go wrong that people really need to take extra precautions. You really need to be aware of your surroundings and what you're doing.
Cousin 13 missed pretty much the whole news conference. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
You guys all done? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
You guys want to come in, Wayne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry, I'll get over real quick.
Yeah. I'm going to move this out of the way.
No. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really just a tragic case, guys, there right outside of Annapolis. Sandy Point Beach is where that little girl drowned, and you heard the details there from the officials and just how extremely dangerous those currents can be and what a tragedy that is with the death of that girl. So more details there. I put the link up in our live chat. If you want more details, link back to our website there for the story. And definitely our hearts and prayers go out to that family. Just a horrible thing to happen at the end of this summer. We do go into Labor Day, and we'll have some more articles about Labor Day and safety and deals and whatnot coming into the weekend. But again, definitely a day to remember this little girl and that tragedy that struck in Maryland yesterday. Meanwhile, today, some other stories on our radar. We're going to be watching as Senator McCain is eventually laid to rest at the end of this week, but he will lie in state at the Arizona State Capitol today, and we'll be following that in our video breaking news. And we have a little bit of coming up right now. Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, will be speaking from the Department of Justice, so we'll bring you that as well. Anything live that we have right now, take a live look down in Florida. This is Clearwater, Florida, where rescue workers are working to rescue some marine life. Not quite sure if they're almost done with this, but we had this up earlier. Stranded marine life, this is specifically, it was a melon-headed whale, which is a dolphin-like animal, and they're usually found out at sea down there in Clearwater, but this one was stranded towards the beach, so they lugged him off, and you can see a lot of reporters there trying to get in the scene. Looks like we just missed him kind of going up into that truck, but that is what's going on down there in Florida. All right, guys, till we have more breaking news back here in Washington, we're going to bring you some of the top stories of today. So check out some of these packages that our sister stations and network have been working on for the past 24 hours.
Its corporate motto is do the right thing, but today President Trump accused Google of doing the wrong thing, of twisting search results to highlight negative stories about him and suppress conservative voices.
I think Google is really taking advantage of a lot of people, and I think that's a very serious thing, and it's a very serious charge.
The president singled out not just Google, but Facebook and Twitter, too.
You just can't do that. They're really treading on very, very troubled territory, and they have to be careful. It's not fair to large portions of the population.
The Oval Office remarks followed a morning Twitter rant where the president said it might be illegal, insisting this is a very serious situation, will be addressed. A Google search of the words Trump News yields mostly stories regarding his complaints about Google, including one that debunks his claim. But there is also a Vanity Fair article that comes up with the headline, Trump is nuts. Google denies any attempt to eliminate the positive and accentuate the negative.
Search is not used to set a political agenda, and we don't bias our results towards any political ideology.
President Trump also drew a sharp response from Mexico today. One day after cutting a new trade deal, the president said a border wall will be built and Mexico will pay for it.
The wall will be paid for very easily by Mexico. It'll ultimately be paid for by Mexico.
Mexico begged to differ. In a tweet, Mexico's foreign minister saying, "We just reached a trade understanding with the U.S., and the outlook for the relationship between our two countries is very positive. We will never pay for a wall, however. That has been absolutely clear from the very beginning." The wall dispute aside, the Mexico trade deal certainly got Canada's attention. The foreign minister came calling in Washington today after President Trump threatened a 25% tariff on Canadian-built cars if it didn't sign on to a revised NAFTA. The president's chief economic advisor denied that the White House was putting pressure on Canada and other U.S. trade allies, but freely acknowledged The ultimate goal is to twist a few arms in Beijing.
I think China is now on the defensive because they see that the USA is beginning to get some momentum, and I think that's great.
The president's Democratic critics are skeptical about the deal with Mexico. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer concerned that it might be like the North Korean deal. Looks good on the surface, but very little detail, and who knows what will really happen. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
President Trump still pulling no punches when it comes to Iran, imposing sanctions that had been suspended under the 2015 nuclear deal. They've led to major disruptions within the Iranian economy and also a number of unintended consequences, with rug makers in Iran and sellers here in the U.S. feeling the pinch.
Rug exports were mostly to America. Our old and original carpets over 100 years old went to America. After the sanctions, this has been limited.
Last year, Tehran sold $126 million worth of Persian rugs on the American market. But this year, sales are down significantly. Imports of hand-woven Iranian carpets have been halted since June 27th, and many say it's not just an attempt to block an important revenue stream, but also an attack on Iranian culture.
There's been a lot of, frankly, fear and concern among American Muslims that the president would attempt to carry out vicious and discriminatory campaign promises.
Rug merchants in the U.S. are now turning to other countries like India and Pakistan. But the move to new markets won't happen overnight. And in the meantime, the industry could be facing big losses.
People who weave these rugs, handmade rugs, they don't have anything to do with the politics. And this is great, this art coming to America.
It is a huge loss. We could have revived this industry.
Iran's National Center for Persian Carpets is working to have the rugs removed from the list of sanctions, but the U.S. told the World Court on Monday the sanctions are both legal and necessary. In Washington, Doug McKelway, Fox News.
I can't believe it's been 10 years. I can't believe it's just like, I woke up one morning and guess what? It's 10 years.
Pat Mother Blues Cohen was born in North Carolina, but she had called the Big Easy home for about 15 years by August 2005, working steadily as a blues singer.
Who thought that this was really going to be the big one? I thought it was, you know.
Hurricane Katrina initially made landfall in Florida on August 25th before heading into the Gulf of Mexico, barreling toward the Gulf Coast. Pat says she intended to ride out the hurricane from her New Orleans apartment until someone woke her up, saying her name in the early morning hours of August 28th.
So I went to sleep that night and I heard a voice. No one can tell you that God don't speak to you sometimes.
It was enough to shake Pat and set her in motion.
I brought maybe 2 outfits, a pair of flip-flops and a pair of shoes, my computer and my car. And that's all that I had. That's all that I had. And planned on coming back.
That same day, the National Weather Service issued this unprecedented message warning of a catastrophic storm. Pat joined thousands of others on the road out of New Orleans. It took her 24 hours to reach her brother's home in Salisbury.
Back-to-back traffic, and heaven forbid if you didn't have gas.
On August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Louisiana as a strong Category 3. It caused immense devastation and loss of life along a large swath of the Gulf Coast. When the levees gave way, about 80% of New Orleans flooded. Tens of thousands of its people scattered across the U.S. According to officials, for 21 days, the Charlotte Coliseum sheltered a total of 2,200 people displaced by Katrina. It took Pat 2 months to get back to New Orleans.
When I went there, that's the only time that it finally came to me that I'd lost everything. You know, I lost everything.
Her second floor apartment hadn't flooded, but she says it was looted, and she, like thousands of others, was adrift.
I didn't have musicians. I didn't know where the clubs were. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And that's displaced. So you're depressed. It's depressing. And I stayed, and it took me about 6 years before I could shake that off of me.
Instead of rebuilding her life in the Big Easy, Pat started putting down roots in East Spencer near her family, using money from FEMA to help buy a home.
It changed New Orleans forever. New Orleans is different now. It's a totally different thing. I couldn't even, why even bother go back? I'm comfortable here, stay here. You know, wherever you go, you take yourself.
She's also built up a following with enough gigs to support herself. Pat says it took 6 years to understand that nothing is promised. And that positive thinking and time can heal.
It's been years. I very seldom sing that song. I'm feeling happy now. I can't walk around feeling sad. I feel happy now because I know that I am in control.
Pretty incredible that it is already the 13th anniversary of Katrina. I remember that like it was yesterday, back in 2005 in August. So people are remembering that really all over the nation, but definitely specifically in New Orleans today. Hey guys, up into DC right here locally at the Department of Justice, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is hosting a roundtable with the Joint Interagency Task Force. Let's listen into some of that. This is live.
They're a murder organization. They teach their people violence. They teach to extort legitimate businesses. And they've been very difficult for us to challenge, but we are challenging them in a degree that has never been done before. And many countries around, many countries in Northern Triangle particularly, are facing growing threats from them, and together we're going to win that battle too. Thank you all. It's good to be with you. All right.
All right, quick switch on that one, guys, since we just lost the feed, or it was ending there, of the Attorney General. Live feed right now of the outside of the Arizona State Capitol, where Senator John McCain will lie in state. We're going to keep you here for a little bit, throw in a couple stories from today, and then kind of go back and forth as we have video coming in.
Hey, this is Andy on the plaza. I'm on the bridge. Yes, sir. You got it.
Little information about what you guys are looking at here, the outside as the lines begin to form here and gather, and the officials there with the American flags outside of the Phoenix Capitol, the Arizona State Capitol there, where John McCain will lie in state today. Now, some interesting details actually about today. Also, this will come in the next 45 minutes or so. His motorcade is slated to arrive, and a private ceremony will be held there where he will lie in state. And that ceremony includes remarks from current Governor Doug Ducey in Arizona and former U.S. Senator John Kyle, plus a benediction from Senator Jeff Flake. And this will also be the first appearance of McCain's family members since the longtime senator died of brain cancer on Saturday. So that's what we're looking at here, guys. Live look outside of that building. You can see really already formulating there, and later the public will get to pay their respects as they pass through that building. A few days later, tomorrow, or Thursday rather, and Friday, and then Saturday are more ceremonies here in Washington. His body will be flown here and land at Joint Base Andrews on Thursday evening. But tonight, members of the public who want to pay their respects in Arizona can form a line as long as there is one. His former presidential campaign manager said they will let people in as long as there is a line there in Arizona. So we'll leave you here for just a little while and switch it up, coming up with some more top stories.
As we prepared to bid a final farewell to Senator John McCain, family, colleagues, and everyday Americans will get a chance to honor the longtime politician and war hero, beginning here in Phoenix. The motorcade carrying the body of John McCain will arrive at Arizona State Capitol later this morning. He will lie in state on the day which would have been his 82nd birthday. A private ceremony will be held in the rotunda. The McCain family will be in attendance. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey will deliver remarks, Congressman Jim Colby will present a wreath, and Senator Jeff Flake will lead the benediction.
Only John McCain could rig a big birthday celebration for himself like this.
Then the Capitol will be open for public viewing.
I have reassurances that as long as there are people in line to file through to see John, the Capitol will remain open.
Events honoring the Maverick will continue throughout the week, including a memorial service in Phoenix, his body lying in state at the U.S. Capitol, funeral services in Washington with actor Warren Beatty, former Vice President Joe Biden, and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, plus several other notable figures serving as pallbearers. And on Sunday, he'll be laid to rest at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Meanwhile, the debate over renaming the Russell Senate building after the six-time senator wages on, Republicans stalling the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's proposal for the name change.
Instead of worrying about what to name for him, which we should name something or a bunch of things, is let's be more like him.
And another person who will be remembering the late senator, McCain's 106-year-old mother, Roberta. Earlier this week, she reportedly said she's proud of her son, but sad to bury her child. In Phoenix, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Copy that.
Currently now waiting on the official motorcade of the former Senator John McCain. You can see officials there, family and friends gathering, and you just heard in that package that we ran who will be speaking at this private ceremony. So I believe that to be behind closed doors, so we won't actually have direct footage of that. But you can see here just what it looks like outside the state capitol right now along that pathway where the motorcade will come through. So we're going to leave it here for you to see this all happening live over in Arizona.
buddy. You're gonna be in my shot.
So if you guys just want to kind of hang out right here so you're in the shade, but then... So basically shooting... Yeah, your backs are going to be along the line.
We prepared to bid a final farewell to Senator John McCain. Family, colleagues, and everyday Americans will get a chance to honor the longtime politician and war hero beginning here in Phoenix. The motorcade carrying the body of John McCain will arrive at Arizona's state capitol later this morning. He will lie in state on the day which would have been his 82nd birthday. A private ceremony will be held in the rotunda. The McCain family will be in attendance. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey will deliver remarks, Congressman Jim Colby will present a wreath, and Senator Jeff Flake will lead the benediction.
Only John McCain could rig a big birthday celebration for himself like this.
Then the Capitol will be open for public viewing.
I have reassurances that as long as there are people in line to file through to see John, the Capitol will remain open.
Events honoring the Maverick will continue throughout the week, including a memorial service in Phoenix, his body lying in state at the U.S. Capitol, funeral services in Washington with actor Warren Beatty, former Vice President Joe Biden, and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, plus several other notable figures serving as pallbearers. And on Sunday, he'll be laid to rest at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Meanwhile, the debate over renaming the Russell Senate building after the six-time senator wages on. Republicans stalling the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's proposal for the name change.
Instead of worrying about what to name for him, which we should name something or a bunch of things, let's be more like him.
And another person who will be remembering the late senator, McCain's 106-year-old mother, Roberta. Earlier this week, she reportedly said she's proud of her son, but sad to bury her child. In Phoenix, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Thanks, copy that. Hey, Vinny, this is Andy. Said update's 9:50 arrival.
weight. Make sure everybody's got enough room to do a head salute. Go ahead, keep left, a little bit more. Who doesn't know what that means? Who doesn't know what that means? Here we go. Head up! I'm my command. I'm going to give the command for right rest. Run! I'm going to give attention to everybody. Including us, the people. They're going to be giving command for law enforcement. I'll wear my law enforcement. Listen to my command. I'm going to give everybody attention. Everybody comes to attention. Stand by! Anybody not hear me?
Loving God, see our tears for our brother, our father, our husband, our fellow citizen, our senator. Let these tears bring blooms in the desert he loved, in the country he served, and in all our hearts. Amen.
Please be seated. Governor Ducey, Governor Brewer, Governor Symington, Governor Napolitano, Representative Colby, Senator Schatz, Senator Heller, Senator Flake, Cindy McCain, and all members of the McCain family and friends. John McCain believed in America. He believed in its people, its values, and its institutions. He said he came to this realization during his time as a POW in Vietnam. I fell in love with my country, he said, when I was a prisoner in someone else's. As a result, he dedicated his life to serve his country. When he saw challenges to its institutions or values, he fought to protect them. Thus, his efforts to rein in excess campaign expenditures and congressional earmarks, which he viewed as corrupting our values and institutions. And his insistence that battlefield detainees be treated in accordance with American law and values. In international affairs, his beliefs led Senator McCain to promote American principles of freedom and democracy for others. And in our military campaigns, to support our missions and our troops. John had a keen eye for American interests and could spot dangerous adversaries a mile away. He was among the first to advocate the surge in Iraq to regain the initiative in the war there. I've been with Senator McCain all around the world, and I will tell you that he had better instincts about how and when and where to assert American power than any other leader that I've known. He had been to more countries, knew more foreign leaders, and had a better grasp of history than any other American official, including our secretaries of state. One illustration that we're all familiar with was when others were looking into Vladimir Putin's eyes with an eye of understanding him and reaching accommodation within. John, of course, said, I looked into his eyes and I saw KGB. While I believe John's greatest contribution was to American national security, we must comment a bit on Arizona interests as well. In a word, he loved his adopted state. He loved its beauty. He was committed to protecting our environment and our water and our forests. He worked throughout his career with our Native American citizens and with Arizona's veterans. He was a big champion of our many military installations. Some have disagreed with some of Senator McCain's votes on policy positions, but that should not diminish our gratitude for his service. And let's return to where I began, John's love for America and Arizona. He represented our values all over the world as Senator from Arizona, and America is stronger for his fierce defense of our values. We can be proud he was our senator. I consider it a great privilege to have served with John, and I will miss him as a friend and as a strong force for America in the world.
We've all seen the grainy video. A young man in his 30s emerges from behind the folding doors of a bus, plows forward with strength. His feet land on the ground, and he limps forward towards freedom. It's John McCain, and he's just spent 5 years as a prisoner of war, shot down, ejected from his plane, his right leg and both arms broken. He managed miraculously to save himself from drowning in the lake in which he landed, only to be captured by the North Vietnamese. No one expected John McCain to make it through the night, but as one of his fellow POWs put it, dying was not in his plan. Confined to solitude, tortured, this son and grandson of Navy admirals repeatedly refused release until every other American brother was released with him. Of all the speeches, interviews, and town hall meetings that have been played and replayed these days since John McCain has left us, it's this moment, more than any other, that can't help but stir a spirit of patriotism deep inside every American, bringing goosebumps to your arms and leaving the hair standing on the back of your neck. Because as you watch his release and learn his story, the senator's life, lessons, and wisdom take on a much more meaningful context. When John McCain called on us to serve a purpose greater than one's own self-interest, it wasn't a talking point designed to win the next election. It was how he had actually lived his life and continued to live his life. It's how he wanted us to live ours. His talk of country first wasn't simply a slogan on a yard sign. It was what John McCain had done and demonstrated over and over and over again in the Navy, through Vietnam, and all the way to his favorite battles on the floor of the United States Senate. In 2008, he electrified an arena in Minneapolis, proclaiming, "We're Americans and we never give up. We never quit. We never hide from history. We make history." Those weren't the empty words of some politician grabbing the microphone and the spotlight for a few fleeting moments. Men had followed John McCain into battle, and we knew we could do the same. This man was trusted and he was tested, qualities in increasingly short supply. We sometimes think that politics is life and death, but John McCain knew better because he had actually seen death and dying and tragedy. Make no mistake, he fought like hell for the causes he believed in. He plowed through election after election with the energy and focus of a warrior. But along the way, he did it with humor and humanity, and without compromising the principles he held so dear. I'd rather lose an election than lose a war. And we knew he was telling us the truth. In that way, John McCain was about more than politics. He brought us above politics. John is probably the only politician who could get us to set aside politics and come together as a state and a nation, as we have. Like many of us here in Arizona, John McCain was from somewhere else. But his spirit, service, and fierce independence ultimately helped shape the state with which he became synonymous. Almost exactly 20 years ago, John McCain delivered the eulogy at Barry Goldwater's funeral. That other great legendary Arizonan who America holds dear in its heart. Where Barry Goldwater was born in Arizona, John McCain was Arizona's favorite adopted son. nearly 45 years old when he moved to Arizona. This is the first place, he said, where he truly found a connection. Arizona has enchanted and claimed me, he wrote. I love it so much, and I'm so grateful for the privilege of representing the state and its people. But in reality, we were the ones who were privileged. Privileged to have John McCain fighting for us. Privileged to learn from him. Privileged that when he was back home to run into him at the movies or at a ball game or at Starbucks. Just like he was any one of us. Privileged to proudly call him a fellow Arizonan. To the rest of the world, John McCain was Arizona. When all of us here traveled and told people we were from Arizona, people knew two big things about it. John McCain and the Grand Canyon. Imagining Arizona without John McCain is like picturing an Arizona without the Grand Canyon. It's just not natural. To the woman who brought John McCain to Arizona, Cindy, thank you. The hearts and prayers of not only Angela and I, but our entire state and nation are with you and your family at this moment. Always known for your elegance, grace, and compassion, and those qualities have been on full display this past year. You are a model for us and an inspiration. Arizona loves you, Cindy McCain. To the woman that brought John McCain into this world, Mrs. McCain, Roberta, 106 years young. You raised a remarkable son, and we are truly blessed that you are among us still. When we look to you, there's no doubt where John McCain inherited his determination, resilience, and tenacity. It was built into his DNA. You see it in John's children, who carry on his spirit of service. Doug, Andy, Megan, Sydney, Jack, Jimmy, and Bridget, may God bless you and keep all of you. Your father was very proud, and so is the state of Arizona. In May, Angela and I had the great honor of visiting with John and Cindy at their cabin. Before lunch, the senator broke the ice by sharing what was weighing on his mind most of all. Breaking into a signature grin, he said, "My biggest challenge is deciding whether or not to run for re-election in 2022. Dying, as has been observed 50 years earlier, was not in his plan. John McCain was a fighter, and he called on us to fight with him for American values, for the ideals and character of a free people, for justice and opportunity for all, for each other, and for this blessed and bountiful country. None of us were ready for this. We never would have been ready for this. But John McCain often said of Americans, we never surrender. So while we grieve today as a state and as a nation, John McCain's fight for America isn't over. It's a fight all Americans are obligated to continue on his behalf. And as we march forward with the courage and resolve he would have demanded, may we take comfort in knowing in that fight, John McCain will always have our back. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to have been gathered here today in the Arizona State Capitol to honor the life and memory of thy servant, John Sidney McCain. We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home. More than 7 million of thy children have done likewise, and all of them, all of us, are grateful for John's able representation over these many years. We ask for thy Spirit to abide with us as we mourn his passing. We ask for an added measure of thy Spirit to be with John's sweet family, who have sacrificed so much for so long in sharing their loving husband and father with us for these many years. Send the Comforter, that they might be reminded that joy cometh in the morning. Now, as we go forward, let us remember thy humble servant with gladness and cheerfulness, to answer his call, to summon the better angels of our nature, to see and appreciate the humanity in our opponents, to more freely forgive, so that we might be forgiven. Of this we pray, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand. We have thanked God for the blessing that John McCain is, continues to be for us. Let us go now from this place in peace and comforting one another in the sure knowledge that one day we will join John in his home in heaven with his God.
All right, y'all, if you are watching on our YouTube channel, unfortunately we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I can't pop back on screen, but you just saw Senator John McCain lying in state, his family surrounding him. Obviously a very emotional day for many friends and family who have gathered to see him there lie in state at the Arizona State Capitol. We're going to have more coverage of this for you on our other digital platforms on Facebook this evening, and later, more into the week on Friday and Saturday and Thursday tomorrow, as these ceremonies and honoring of the former senator continue here on our channel. Thanks for joining us here on Fox 5 Live. I'm Molly Nevola inside the newsroom. We'll catch you again tomorrow for more live news from our newsroom here in DC.